Hi, friends. Tony DeWitt here, Missouri appellate attorney and a guy who likes to make the law make sense on YouTube. Here's what we're discussing today. Well, this is a bit of a follow-up video, and so I decided today because it's kind of cold here down in the South, I decided to wear one of my sweatshirts. This is one that's available. I have it down below on the site. It says, "It is not the severity of punishment that deters crime, it is the certainty of it." And that is a sentiment that I share. It was actually a quotation from Hanging Judge Parker, who was the judge in Fort Smith that is sort of referenced obliquely in the True Grit movies. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Annette Harvey. And Annette Harvey, as you all will remember, posited an insanity defense in her case where she was charged with killing Robin Leonard. And that was a case where the actual video of the trial wasn't available. There are snippets of it that come in from court TV. And generally speaking, unless they broadcast the entire day's worth of trial, it's very difficult for me to get that video. So I don't have any video to talk about that, but I do want to talk about the defense. Now, you'll remember that I laid out for you pretty clearly how difficult it is to establish an insanity defense in Tennessee. So it would appear that the route that they took in trying to get this insanity defense recognized was to put their client on the stand. And I assume that the approach was there to demonstrate to anybody who wanted to look at it and evaluate the testimony for what it was. I'm assuming that the approach was to demonstrate her kind of lack of intent and her clear mental illness by putting her up on the stand and taking her through a direct examination. But the bottom line is that she didn't really try to make an insanity defense. What she said was she remembered somebody else doing the killing and that she couldn't stop it, or words to that effect. And if you put your client on for an insanity defense, you pretty much have to stick to the facts. And when you don't stick to the facts, when you set up a situation like they did there, where now there is yet another theory of how this could have happened, it could have been somebody else, the one-armed man from The Fugitive, so to speak, the alternate defense. When you put that on, it does a very bad thing for the jury. The jury now has to say, well, is she crazy, or did somebody else do it? Does she really believe somebody else did it, or is she really just throwing something up there to see what sticks to the wall? And I think if you evaluate it carefully, you'd find that it's probably something to the latter of the two. I don't have any doubt that Annette Harvey killed her friend, Ms. Leonard, Robin Leonard, and I don't have any doubt that there was nobody else there. They certainly didn't find any evidence of anybody else being there. And sometimes people go into fugue states. And that's especially true when alcohol or drugs, intoxicants of almost any kind, can cause this to happen. And people do things that are absolutely crazy. They had a guy out in California who was stabbed 121 times by his very petite, very likable girlfriend because they had smoked marijuana and she had a psychotic reaction to it. So again, kids, don't do drugs. This is the kind of thing that can happen. You would think people would recognize that at this point, but apparently that has become so ubiquitous in our society, the availability of it, that nobody really pays any attention to the warning. There are numerous stories of people, particularly with cocaine, having that drug laced with fentanyl. There are stories of marijuana being laced with PCP. Almost any drug that can be sold to you illegally can be adulterated illegally with other chemicals. And many times those chemicals are not friendly to the body. Methamphetamine is another one of those chemicals that it's made in bathtubs, among other places, and it uses toxic chemicals like brake fluid, all kinds of really nasty things that you would think no one in their right mind would put into their body, let alone smoke. People do that, and it causes these fugue states. Now, in other states, the fact that you have engaged in that contact prior to engaging in criminal acts can sometimes be brought in mitigation, as it was in the California case. The young lady wound up with, I think, 3 years of probation. It was a very small sentence for having killed someone in a fit of psychotic rage. It amazes me that that would be the case. But in conservative states like Tennessee and Missouri, you're just not going to get away with that because they view taking the drugs as the first step in the crime. And as a result, you don't get to say, well, it wasn't me, it was the drugs, because you took the drugs. You did that knowingly and willingly. And so you're responsible for the consequences of what you've done. And I do think that is the appropriate way to look at something like that when you have a heinous murder that occurs as a result of, some kind of psychotic episode. But the stories are legend. I once had a patient who came in through the ER who was completely disconnected from reality from some kind of drug that he had ingested. And once the drugs were out of his system, he was as nice as could be. But he actually broke one of the leather straps that they had used to strap him down to the bed. The guy didn't look like he could squeeze lemon juice out of a lemon, and he broke a blasted leather strap. So it is one of those things where these chemicals do things to your body that you may not even anticipate. But in Annette Harvey's case, whatever the cause, the plea to the jury to find her insane simply didn't work. Now, I think she was pretty well represented, and I am pretty sure that the insanity defense was the only defense they had that might have worked. But at the end of the day, the fact is that the jury just didn't buy it. And of course, the reason they didn't buy it is because the instructions in Tennessee are quite limiting in terms of who can use that defense. Now, this is the next thing I want to talk about. I'm going to show you a couple of minutes of this video, and I think you will be surprised to see just exactly how good certain law enforcement people can be.
The reason why I called the press conference today is I owe a young man a sincere apology because we made a mistake, and I don't want him, his family, his friends, or anybody that knows him to think that he did anything wrong in any way. His name is Olin Christopher Rhodes. This is a guy that did nothing wrong. Now, we had a warrant roundup last week, and his picture was put up there, and we'd had him charged with PWID.
For those of you who may be unfamiliar with cop speak, that is possession with the intent to distribute. PWID, possession with the intent to distribute. And it was fentanyl.
Fentanyl, which is pretty terrible. This young man turns himself in. His wife and his family were super nice to me, I have to say. They asked a question on Facebook, have a question for law enforcement professionals about investigations. One of my family members said, you may want to check on that, so I did. This lady was very kind and personally messaged me instead of beating me to death on Facebook, which they have a right to do. But they're good people. And this gentleman right here, Mr. Rhodes, was terminated from his job. And I want to say thank you to the city of Malden for understanding that we made this mistake and not him, and gave him his job back. So thank you for that. They lost a little bit of money that we will recoup for them. I want to show you, I really want to show you the guy that looks like him, but I have not 100% identified him, so I don't want to make the same mistake twice.
Is that not amazing? The person who made the mistake, the detective, apparently realized that there were problems when this young man put up a defense basically saying it couldn't have been me, and instead of just kicking him free and burying it, and because the fact of the matter is, everyone reads the headline, nobody ever reads the retraction. Instead of doing that, this sheriff went on local television and said, I'm calling this press conference because I don't want any blowback for this kid. And, I have to give the guy credit. This was an amazing thing to do. And I think when people do things like this, we ought to recognize it and give them the credit that they deserve. We always see the stories about the bad sheriff, like the sheriff in Marlborough County in South Carolina, who has obviously been indicted in a federal grand jury for torturing an inmate. Obviously, he's innocent until proved guilty. But you see stories like that, and a lot of times our media focuses on all of the negative stories about police officers, sheriffs, departments, federal officers, and they don't do enough to put this kind of information out when somebody stands up and says, hey, we screwed up, we take full accountability, and here's what we're going to do to make it right. We're going to apologize to this guy in public, online, make sure everybody sees it. And they even went to the trouble of getting the man's job back for him. He got fired from the job, and they got the job back for him. And as the sheriff says, they are going to compensate him. So again, kind of a feel-good story. I thought maybe everybody would appreciate hearing a good feel-good story. Well, that's what I have for you today. If you have any comments, leave them in the comments down below. Of course, if you find anything in my Shopify store available at the bottom of my channel there, I'd be happy to send it to you. It's one way you can support the channel if you want to. But of course, I'm just doing this for fun. This is something that, I find t-shirts with funny sayings to be a really funny thing. So I put my own t-shirts and sweatshirts out, and I enjoy doing that. Thanks again for watching. If you have the opportunity today, do something nice for somebody, and then come back here tomorrow and catch me at the beach. If you like this video, here are a few others you might try, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a terrific day, guys.